Cimoooooooo!
What's going on, guys? It's Cimo, and today I have for you a very special kind of video. I actually had the opportunity to interview Ido Marcus, the European national champion that went to Worlds, and actually got very popular at Worlds. He made the top 8, he didn't win, but he basically became a fan favorite of mine, and I wanted to really just have the opportunity to interview him, and just, talk about just all things about Worlds, I mean, he's a really cool guy. I'll actually link in the description his video from his deck profile from the European WCQ, just so you can get an idea of the kind of personality this guy has. I think he's really funny, and so yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to interview him, and as you can see on screen here, this is the deck that he actually took to Worlds. Now, keep in mind, the Worlds deck list is a little bit different from ours, or the Worlds ban list, excuse me, and so, there's a lot of different things, so Burning Abyss wasn't allowed at all, Shaddolls were basically neutered so that they were to the point of being unplayable, and just things like that. And so, what I really just wanted to do was go through the deck list really quick, and I couldn't get an interview with Ido, through a video chat or Skype or anything like that, but we actually talked through Facebook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate our conversation and just elaborate on some of the points that we made that I thought were just really good takeaways that all of us could appreciate. So for the deck list, 2 copies of Bubble Man, 3 Shadow Mist, 3 Mystic Tomato, which when I saw this, I was just on the floor, because this is so smart, and I elaborated on this in the interview, but oh my god, 3 Mystic Tomato, the memes were everywhere for this, so it was just amazing. Only 1 copy of Summoner Monk, and 1 Thunder King Ryo. For the spells, we had 3 Hero Lives, 1 Book of Moon, Dark Hole, triple Forbidden Lance, triple Mask Change, triple Mask Charge, 3 Mystical Space Typhoon, 2 Blackhorn, Bottomless, 3 Call of the Haunted, Compulse, 2 Oasis, Ring, Warning, Torrential, and Vanities. For the side deck, we had 3 Kinetic Soldier, which is another thing that Ido became notorious for over the weekend, 3 Max C, the 3rd copy of Blackhorn, 3 Fairy Wind, 3 Iron Wall, and 2 Mirror Force. For his extra deck, he had 2 Acid, 1 Anki, 3 Dark Law, 1 Vapor, and then for the Xyz monsters, we have Dweller, Castel, Diamond Dyer, Exciton, Excalibur, 101, Ragna, and Master Key Beetle. So without further ado, I'm going to get into the interview. As you can see, this is a really interesting hero list, and it was really cool to just see all this play out, and really got the opportunity to talk to Ido discussing some of this. So my first question to Ido was, what were your thoughts when you initially saw the ban list for Worlds? And his response was, Heroes versus Klee in a head-to-head fight. It was clear to me that I had to use either one of the 2 myself. Klee's already have a good matchup versus everything, and Heroes is likely the only deck that stomps on it. So what Ido was figuring, just based off the ban list, was that Klee was just going to be in just mass numbers at Worlds. And, I mean, for good reason. I mean, Klee was hardly hit on the Worlds ban list, and so Heroes, in his opinion, was the only deck that could really just utterly stomp Klee, excuse me. And so that was his meta call. And so, in response to that response, I asked, so given the list, you took a chance that everyone was going to go with Klee and made an appropriate counter pick for that meta call. And he said, exactly. The day before I got to Japan, I figured I might be wrong and that Ritual Beast and Tellers, who has a good matchup versus Heroes, would be played as well. So I thought on switching to Klee myself, with the Selection sided and max draw power, 3 frontline base, and 3 Soul Transition. Eventually, I believe the mirror match is too rough, and 1 MST can end it all. So I went with Heroes. I didn't see the Highlander Necros coming at all. So that's really interesting. So, the Selection, I'm actually going to pull that card up right here. This is a really interesting card. So you pay 1,000 life points and negate the summon of a monster that's the same type as a monster already on the field. And then, just with 3 Soul Transition and all that, he just wanted to max out on the turbo draw style, I guess, with Klee. And so he wasn't anticipating Necros at all, which in the World's ban list, Necros is actually still very playable. So, it was really surprising for me that he wasn't anticipating it whatsoever. And as we saw, I mean, Necros ended up doing fairly well. So we see the deck list right here, and so I asked him, so what was your thought process when building this deck? I mean, obviously we discussed your meta call, but I wanted him to go into more specifics with certain card ratios and things like that. And so he, in response to that, he said, I felt like I needed Dark Law ASAP versus Cleese, which makes sense because, you know, if Dark Law's out, everything that goes to the Pendulum Zone is going to get banished instead, and every time they do a search with Scout or for Sacrifice or anything, they're going to go ahead and get to knock a card out of their hand. So I have to make a control-based hero build. I chose Tomato because I could attack and then immediately Dark Law in the same battle phase. And so I just want to quickly note on that. So with Mystic Tomato, if you attack into an opponent's, let's say, carrier, the Tomato will die, you take 400 damage, Shadow Mist gets summoned, you add Mask Change to your hand. Oh, Mask Change, there we go. You add Mask Change, and then you can immediately just go into Dark Law, run over that carrier or whatever, and then you're in really good shape. So his theory for the Tomato actually makes a lot of sense. And I remember when I saw him play Mystic Tomato for the first time, like, something clicked in my head, like, wow, that, like, I've never even thought about that, but it just makes so much sense. So going back to what he said, the Black Horns were for Ritual Beast and Satellar Knights. And so, you know, Ritual Beast, you know, Black Horn is this card's, is Ritual Beast's worst nightmare. Because if you hit that on their fusion summon, which are inherent, it just totally cripples their plays. And then with Satellar Knights, it's a very spammy rank 4 based deck. And so Black Horn can just be completely clutch against them as well. He maxed on Mask Charge because he wanted to make sure he would have power draws late game when since he's only running 5 heroes, he wanted to make sure that he had power plays for late game, which makes a lot of sense. I actually, in my opinion, would have only maybe played 2 of this, but I mean, I could see his logic. You want to just be able to just completely blow out your opponent later on in the game. And then he said that he felt Rhoda and E-Call felt odd due to the low amount of heroes that he played, which is why, if you notice, he doesn't play any Rhoda or E-Call in here. Now, I believe Rhoda was at 1, and E-Call, I actually don't know where E-Call was on the list, so it's interesting just to see that it's really kind of odd just for us TCG players to see a hero build that doesn't have any Rhoda or E-Call, since it's at 3 for all of us. So, continuing on with this statement, going into the side deck now, the Kinetic Soldiers were for the Mirror Match and for Tellers, and that makes perfect sense because Kinetic Soldier is such a fucking beast. We all know this. If anyone played a 6-Sam format or any format where Warriors were just a super prevalent deck, Kinetic Soldier is absolutely fantastic. And so, he also played Mirror Force for the Mirror Match, excuse me, and also any sneaky Necros players, which he actually had to end up playing a lot of. Because this plus Dark Law puts in a lot of work. I mean, you basically have a Black Sonic, and being able to banish all the resources is huge. So then, keeping on with the side deck, he played the Imperial Iron Wall for Ritual Beast, and along with Master Key Beetle for the combo kill, and the rest of the deck is pretty standard, and that makes sense. I mean, he has a pretty few tech choices with Blackhorn and the 3 Mask Charge, things like that, but overall, and the Mystic Tomato, of course, but overall, the rest of the deck does seem fairly standard. So moving on, I asked him if he imagined that the Mystic Tomato was actually going to be just invoke so much excitement and just bring about all these memes from all these players. And he said he had no idea. He said, it seems like not a lot of players who've played since Legend of Blue Eyes, like himself and myself included, they don't look at cards like Mystic Tomato because they don't see them as being legit, as he said. And someone who started playing in 2010 won't even consider those cards because they consider them to be outdated. And so he said monsters like Mystic Tomato that are from Magic Ruler are just his heart and soul. And I can totally relate to that. A lot of us who've played the game this long, these cards can sometimes be these, like, one card that you tech into your deck that just sets it over the edge. I mean, we see it come back multiple times, where we see a random card like, let's say, Magical Hats in Harpies is just one of the best cards ever because you can tie it in with Hysteric Sign. Or just random things like that just have really good synergy with a lot of current decks in the format. And so, yeah, like I said, I can totally relate how, you know, cards like Mystic Tomato might seem so slow, but I think some people might start experimenting more now with Mystic Tomato in hero builds. And one of the biggest takeaways that he said, knowing cards is the key to being creative. And I really want to elaborate on that point because that is something that I feel can really distinguish some good players from some not so good players is that if your knowledge of a card base is more expanded, then that means you have the potential to come up with new ideas for a deck that could just put your deck over the edge. If you have, let's say you have 2 hero decks. You have a hero deck running Mystic Tomato and one that's not running Mystic Tomato. Mystic Tomato might be, that one thing that just makes your deck all the better. So I thought that was a really good takeaway. And yeah, I mean, it was just something really good that I feel we can all learn from. So the next thing I asked him was, what's one card you regret that you didn't run? And he said that it was Mind Crush. And this might be fairly obvious, but had he have known Necros were going to be so popular, he would have at least ran it, or at least sided it, and he would have sided, or he would have just sided something else from his main deck and just mained the card. But he was not anticipating Necros, as we've already established. Another thing, though, that he mentioned was Smashing Ground, because he mentioned earlier that Decisive Armor with Necros was a really hard card for him to get around. And that makes a lot of sense, because in the main deck, he doesn't have a lot of outs to Decisive Armor that are really 1 or 2 card outs. And even if he does, if the opponent had like Gungnir or Trish to help protect the Decisive Armor, I mean, he'd be in for a really hard day. And so he said he actually would have considered maining 2 copies of Smashing Ground just to deal with Decisive Armor, because Decisive Armor was the sole reason he lost 4 duels to Necros, and that's pretty substantial, so I could see why he would, consider running that in retrospect. And so I said, yeah, Mind Crush on paper seems like it would hit a lot of key matchups, like Klee, Satellar, and Necros, and even in the mirror match as well. And Decisive Armor could be a problem because, again, like I said, if you don't have something like Dark Hole or something to combo with Forbidden Lance, I mean, there's really not that many options to get around a Decisive Armor. And he said exactly, Smashing Ground would have won him every game 1 versus Necros had he played it. He lost all game 1s to Necros, and he won all game 2, and then game 3 lost on top 8, which makes total sense. And he bricked after he topped Shurit after Brio was, or because his opponent topped Shurit after Brio was gone. And so I asked him what he would have taken out Smashing Ground for, and he said he would have taken out for the Blackhorns, because the Blackhorns actually didn't serve him too much good outside of maybe Satellar and Klee as well, you could argue. But in terms of actually what he played against, he said the Blackhorns weren't as good as he thought, and so he would have definitely played the Smashing Grounds. And he said he would have also considered maining Triple Mirror Force, which is also a really good option as well. He also said he would consider Trap Tricks Trap Hole Nightmare, but he would need to think it over a bit. But again, he never expected Necros to be as popular as they were, and so that was really the thing that would have made him reconsider a lot of his choices in the deck. And so that was actually it for the interview. The last thing that he ended on was, he said it was fun as hell to go to Worlds and see that many people rooting for him was really heartwarming. And he just wants to thank everyone for that. And he hopes that he can entertain more players in the future with future techs. And he says he'll promise that he'll try from here on out. So again, it was really awesome to have the opportunity to interview Ido. He's a really awesome guy. I hope one day if I ever travel to Europe or he comes to the States that I'll have the opportunity to meet him. Just a really cool guy. So, overall, let me know down in the comments what you guys think about this deck list, this interview, and just what you thought about this video overall. So, thank you all so much for watching the video, and we'll see you next time. Cimoooooooo!